the Trump administration announced that it's going to change the way the Endangered Species Act is applied. So the administration's alterations don't actually change the law, but they do change how the government is going to enforce it. And the new rules are designed to make it easier to remove a species from the endangerment list and lower protections for threatened species, that is the classification one step below endangered. Now, as a general view, I think that preserving species can be a worthy goal, but it should be from the perspective of human flourishing. That is this species valuable to us directly or indirectly, and how valuable? And just by indirectly, I have in mind that, we might not directly benefit from it as food or something like that, but it might be vital to a particular habitat that that there's other valuable things that we get from it. But the Endangered Species Act explicitly prevents us from asking those kinds of questions. That is, from looking at it from a human perspective. The whole idea is that we are supposed to preserve species, whatever the level of sacrifice required from us, regardless of the costs. And that is, it's literally true. So that under current law, to make a determination about whether a species belongs on the endangerment list and therefore gets all kinds of different protections, it has to be made without reference, I'm quoting, to possible economic or other impacts of determination. Now, that is an insane provision. Like, if you think about what a cost means, a cost has a major impact on human life. That is, if you deprive a community of $1 billion, people will die sooner. And so what this really means is that the life of an endangered spider or whatever is worth more than any number of human lives and any amount of human happiness. And as I mentioned, Trump is not changing the law. They have not said that, no, now we're going to start taking in costs, which would require taking into account costs, which would require an act from Congress. It's merely disclosing the cost to the public. It's saying that, all right, this is going to have this much of a financial impact on you. And that seems reasonable, right? Like, if we are the ones who have delegated to the government saying, yeah, we want to preserve species, it seems that being informed about, well, what are the trade-offs involved in that is the least that could be done. But environmentalists, unsurprisingly, are complaining. The way the New York Times puts it is that change, conservation groups fear, opens the door to business interests coming into discussions of whether a species should be protected. And to put that as business interests is really interesting, because, like, what is a business interest? It's just the ability to produce the wealth that human beings need to flourish. And so what they're really objecting to is not business interests, but human interests. And if you want to see in vivid detail what this really means in practice, we could go through stories of the kinds of development projects that are shut down, not to protect something that, like, everybody's really invested in, like bald eagles or polar bears, but over, like, literally bugs, spiders, and animals that you've never heard of and wouldn't care about if you did hear about them. But I'm not even more, I think, illuminating than that is the Wall Street Journal had an editorial recently that really drives this framework of thinking about species preservation home. So earlier this year, there was a rat infestation, or there is a rat infestation in downtown Los Angeles near a homeless encampment, and it led to an outbreak of typhus. And in fact, cases of the flea-borne disease had more than doubled since 2012. Now, California's EPA had a pretty sensible response, which is they put out rat poison. But environmentalists, of course, complained. And why do they complain? Because it would harm the species that prey on rats. And so now there's actually Democrats in California who are moving to ban what are called second generation rodenticides that are more potent than earlier poisons. And the reason they want the reason that people are interested in this more potent form of poison is because the old ones that won't be banned, rats have started to develop an immunity to it. And so this is a finding that went along, or an analysis that went along with this bill. It said predatory species such as raptors, bobcats, and foxes regularly consume rodents as part of their diet. Poison rodents also become more lethargic and exhibit abnormal behavior, but data are less conclusive in pointing to um, anticoagulant rodenticides as the specific cause of death in these animals. So, in other words, it's saying, well, we're not really sure that these poisons are hurting these predator species, but what we do know is that rodents are carrying diseases that are really hurting Californians. But to environmentalists, that does not matter because we cannot consider the cost to human beings. Any thoughts on this, Stefan?
Yeah, I found the Endangered Species Act really an evil piece of legislation back a couple of years when I first encountered the actual text. And it has a lot of illogical things to it. And one of the things that I have encountered is that this legislation requires the federal government to protect species no matter why they are endangered. So if like dinosaurs were around and they were about to go extinct naturally, we would have to protect them with taxpayer money. So there's no, for no reason, any animal could ever die if we take this literally. So this is a very illogical piece of legislation. And of course, this new interpretation or this guidance rule is not going to change the actual Endangered Species Act. So yeah, it's an uphill battle, and we see this all across the world. So in Europe, they banned these pesticides called neonicotinoids, which allegedly had endangered bee species. And it turned out it wasn't actually a real danger to the honeybees in Europe, but nevertheless, these pesticides were banned by the European Union. So it's a really good tool for obstructionist Greens to ban all kinds of technologies that are actually life saving.